So what we know is that these vaccines are remarkable. We also know that they do not function as intended in multiple regards, and that ought to have us being very cautious with respect to things like the signal that they are not doing what they are hoped to do. With all that said, it is also the case that the perverse incentives are worse than normal in this circumstance. So that is to say, under normal circumstances, there are incentives that work in the public's interest. In other words, a pharmaceutical company has an interest in producing a product that's really very good, because a product that's really very good will cause doctors to prescribe it and patients to get it, and it will cause credit to go to the company and all of that. That's a good incentive. But a perverse incentive is one where the company's interest is not necessarily in the interests of the patient or society. And so anyway, there are unusual perverse incentives here. For one thing, we, like it or not, have a big emerging market. COVID is causing lots and lots of problems, and both epidemiologically and with respect to the well-being of patients. There's a lot of new stuff to be done. And so that big emerging market may look a different way to a company that may be able to exploit it profitably than it does to society that might like to shut down that big emerging market. Do we know what effect that has? We don't, but it is a question worth asking. We are also in a crisis mentality because of the severe impact of COVID on planet Earth. That crisis mentality affects the way people think. They may not be as clear-headed about what's really in their interest. And most conspicuously, we've got immunity from liability, which is...
We don't.
Well, these companies that make the vaccines have immunity from liability. So to the extent that one of the things that aligns the incentives of patients with producers of pharmaceuticals is the threat that if a pharmaceutical isn't good for you, that they will get sued, to the extent that that has been taken off the table, that obviously creates an increase in the hazard to patients that companies won't take those risks seriously enough. And at the same time, the perverse incentives on the one side are greater than normal. We also have the best drug available, and maybe it's even two drugs, which we will get back to, but the best drug available seems to be safer than normal because it isn't new. And it's been administered so many times that we actually know a lot about its impact on people. So to the extent that there might be flaws in the drug safety system or whatever it is, we have a huge amount of data on what happens in actual human patients. And I would also point out, it's not an absolute protection, but the fact that the drug in question, ivermectin, comes from soil bacteria, it's not a completely synthetic molecule, means that it is likely to be similar to things that one's ancestors have encountered before, and there's therefore a good chance that the body has a reasonably elegant way of dealing with it rather than using some mechanism that's not so great. Okay.
There are lots of exceptions to that, of course, but all else being equal, trust the thing from nature sooner than the thing from lab, understanding that sometimes nature is indeed exactly out to kill you.
Yes, right. Yeah. Cyanide, for example, is a natural product that is a very good non-competitive inhibitor of respiratory enzymes and very frightening for that reason.
Right.
Okay.